Space. It's big, it's dark, it's terrifying. And there's a lot of stuff in it, like rocks. And more rocks. But aside from the countless rocks, there are actually a bunch of interesting objects that roam in space. And in some cases they're even really obscure. Everything that exists in space can be put in the same category, astronomical objects. And like the 35th rule of the internet says, if it exists, there's an iceberg image for it. So, here we are. I present the first part of the astronomical objects iceberg. Because outside the little place you call home, there's a whole nother world that has yet to be explored. Before we start, I want to emphasize that I will only be going over the interesting and important information of each entry. You can always take it upon yourself to do deeper research on the topics you find interesting, but this video acts as a gateway into the subject, and its main purpose is only to make you aware of the existence of these objects and give you the main info. For the people who already watched a couple of my videos, the editing of this iceberg will be a little more traditional and laid back, simply because the topic of the video didn't allow me to do those silly fast animations that you're used to. Also, I took the freedom to remove a few entries because we're going over a lot of different objects, and some of these just don't have anything interesting going for them and they get overshadowed by the cooler entries. So I just excluded them entirely to keep the video interesting. I hope you understand. Thanks to the Umbrellical Cord guy on Reddit who created the iceberg. You can find the link to the original picture in the video description. Anyway, I hope you enjoy the video. Planets of our solar system. First, we have the most notable celestial bodies of the solar system, which is the place in the universe where we are right now. Everybody knows them, so I'm not going to spend a lot of time talking about them, but here's a quick rundown with the most notable facts. Mercury. Mercury is the planet closest to the Sun and the smallest planet in the solar system. Venus. Venus is the second planet of the solar system, and due to the many gases in its atmosphere, Venus is pretty hot, reaching temperatures up to 460 degrees Celsius, making it the hottest planet in the solar system. Venus is actually a plausible contender for colonization because it has similar size and gravity to Earth. Also, its thick atmosphere protects it from space radiation. But at its current state, Venus is the deadliest planet in the solar system. Earth. Earth is the planet we're on right now, together with tons of other life forms. It's the only known place in the universe where life is possible, and therefore is the planet that we know most about. Here's a quick rundown of Earth lore. Mars. Mars is Earth's neighbor and probably the #1 contender for colonization because it has water in the form of ice on its north pole, which is an essential part of the creation of life according to most scientists. Jupiter. Jupiter is the biggest planet in the solar system. It has 79 moons, some of them are even similar to Earth. Jupiter is a gas giant, which basically means it's big and mostly made out of gases. Saturn. Saturn is the second and last gas giant in the solar system, and it's well known for the rings that surround it. Uranus. Uranus is one of the coldest planets in the solar system, and unlike other planets, its axis is tilted almost 98 degrees. For reference, Earth's axis is only tilted 23 degrees. Neptune. And finally we have Neptune, which is... You really thought I was gonna make a Uranus joke? Okay, I might be low, but not that low. This is a serious video, on a serious topic. Deal with it. Neptune. And finally we have Neptune, which is the most outer planet of the solar system, and it has a diameter of 49,244 kilometers, which means you could stick it easily inside Uranus. Moon. This entry obviously refers to that big grey rock orbiting Earth called the Moon. A lot of people think that Moon is a general term used to refer to astronomical bodies that orbit planets, but that is actually not the case. The correct term would be natural satellite. Moon is just the name of Earth's natural satellite. But in order to reduce confusion, I will continue to refer to all types of natural satellites as moons. The Earth's moon influences such things as the oceans, the weather, the seasons, the length of our days, the brightness at night, and many other things. Sun. The sun is what keeps all this together. It is the center of the solar system, and it is easily the biggest and most massive object in the solar system. In fact, its mass compromises 99.86% of all the mass in the solar system. All other celestial bodies in the solar system orbit around the sun in ellipses. Obviously, the sun is a provider of heat and light, which is essential for life on on Earth, and it produces its heat by being a literal giant fusion reactor. Okay, now that we got the boring entries out of the way, let's start with the interesting ones. International Space Station. The International Space Station, or short ISS, is currently the only operating space station. It is a collaborative project involving 5 space agencies from all around the world, those being NASA from the USA, Roscosmos from Russia, JAXA from Japan, the ESA from Europe, and the CSA from Canada. The ISS is located in Earth's low orbit, meaning that you can even spot it with the naked eye. It serves as a space environment research laboratory for various scientific fields, like for example astrobiology or astronomy. Also, it is the most expensive man-made object ever created, costing around $100 billion. Pluto. Pluto is the most famous of the 5 so-called dwarf planets of our solar system, which are objects that have the same properties as normal planets, but are just way smaller. It has approximately 1/3 of the moon's volume, and Pluto used to be considered the 9th planet of the solar system for some time. That was until more dwarf planets got discovered. In 2006, Pluto got demoted to a dwarf planet. Sirius. Sirius is what's known as a binary star, which is a system of 2 stars that are so close together that when observed from Earth they appear as only one single point of light. Sirius is comprised of 2 stars, Sirius A and Sirius B, Sirius A being the main star of the system and Sirius B being its white dwarf companion. Together they form the brightest star in the night sky, Polaris. Polaris is the brightest star in the star constellation Ursa Minor, also called Little Bear. You might know the star under the name Pole Star or North Star. Due to it being almost exactly north, it has been a reference point for travelers and explorers for centuries. Polaris is also a triple star system, which means that it's comprised of 3 stars that orbit around each other. Halley's Comet. Halley's Comet is one of the most well-known comets ever. It returns every 75 to 76 years, and due to its brightness, it is visible with the naked eye. The last time it passed Earth was in 1986, and it will make its next appearance in 2061. The comet was already observed since 240 BC, but only in the year 1705 an English astronomer named Edmund Halley understood that these observations were all of the same comet and that the comet reoccurs every few years. That's also where it got its name. Halley's Comet triggered mass hysteria several times, like in 1910, where people believed that the comet would release gases that would kill all life on Earth. Also, since England's former King Edward VII died while the comet passed Earth, people blamed the comet for his death, although nobody knew exactly why his death would be linked to the passing of the comet. Big Dipper. Big Dipper is an asterism, meaning it's a constellation of stars seen in the northern celestial hemisphere. The 7 bright stars that the Big Dipper consists of are actually part of another asterism, Ursa Major, or also called the Great Bear, the bigger counterpart of the previously mentioned Little Bear. 2 of its stars, Dubhe and Merak, can be used to locate the polar star, which is part of the Big Dipper's counterpart, the Little Dipper. Orion. Orion is the most recognizable constellation of the celestial equator. It got its name from the ancient Greeks, who saw a character from Greek mythology with the same name in this constellation. Orion is most visible between January and March, and it also gets used to locate other stars. Milky Way. Everybody should be familiar with the Milky Way. It is the galaxy that contains the solar system in which we are right now. The Milky Way is what's called a barred spiral galaxy, while a normal spiral galaxy, simply put, is a spiral-shaped galaxy that rotates around a center point. A barred spiral galaxy is a spiral-shaped galaxy that rotates around a bar-shaped structure, simply called bar. The Milky Way has a diameter between 100,000 and 200,000 light years, and it's also visible from Earth, where it looks like somebody spilled milk across the galaxy. That's also where it got its name from. The Milky Way approximately contains 100 to 400 billion stars, from which the oldest ones are nearly as old as the universe itself. All the content of the Milky Way rotates around what is believed to be a supermassive black hole, which marks the center of the galaxy. Andromeda Galaxy. The Andromeda Galaxy is the nearest large spiral galaxy to the Milky Way, the distance between the two being approximately 2.5 million light years. It is located in the Andromeda constellation, and it is the furthest object from Earth that is visible with the naked eye. Its structure is fairly similar to the Milky Way's. Its discovery in 1920 is how we found out that the Milky Way isn't the only galaxy in space, and that there is an unknown amount of other galaxies that haven't been discovered yet. What's special about the Andromeda Galaxy is that it's on a direct collision course with the Milky Way. It is expected that both galaxies will collide in 4 to 5 billion years, which will lead to the formation of a new larger galaxy called Milkdromeda. which is a terrible name by the way. But instead of being a spiral galaxy like its forebears, the new galaxy will be a so-called giant elliptical. For the two massive black holes in their centers, it is expected that they will form a binary black hole in the center of the new galaxy, which is a system of two black holes in close orbit of each other. This system gives off immense amount of energy in the form of gravitational waves. A binary black hole is very unstable and it will only stabilize when both black holes collide and form one unified black hole. Hubble Space Telescope. The Hubble Space Telescope is the first space telescope that orbits Earth. It was named after astronomer Edwin Hubble and it has the size of a school bus. It got launched in April of 1990, ready to take pictures of distant space objects, but there was one small problem. The pictures looked like ass. There was an issue with its main mirror that only got fixed 3 years later. Obviously, it is advantageous to have a telescope in space because there is no atmosphere blocking the light coming towards the telescope. The camera of the telescope works pretty much like the camera in your smartphone. Its pictures helped a lot teaching scientists about the solar system. Little Dipper. The Little Dipper is the counterpart of the Big Dipper. It is part of the constellation Ursa Minor, also called Little Bear, and like its big brother, it consists of 7 bright stars, from which one of them is the pole star. It is pretty much the same thing as the Big Dipper, just a little smaller. Asteroid Belt. The solar system is divided into several areas. Starting from the Sun, you have the inner planets, which are Mercury, Venus, Earth and Mars. Then you have the outer planets, Jupiter, Saturn, Uranus and Neptune. At the edge of the solar system you have the Kuiper belt, in which I will go into further detail later in the video. The inner planets are separated from the outer planets by the asteroid belt, a region between Mars and Jupiter filled with asteroids. The dwarf planet Ceres is also located in the asteroid belt and it is the largest object in this area. It is estimated that it contains over 650,000 objects, from which most are asteroids, but the total mass of all objects in the asteroid belt only adds up to 4% of the moon's mass. Together with the inner planets, they form the inner solar system. Saturn's rings. Saturn's rings are the planet's most recognizable characteristic. They are made out of dozens and dozens of particles, mostly rock and ice. The rings have a diameter of almost 1,000,000 kilometers, but they are only 10 to 100 meters thick. While the existence of Saturn was already known since prehistoric times, the rings only were discovered in 1610 by famous astronomer Galileo Galilei. Voyager 1 and Voyager 2. Voyager 1 and 2 are 2 space probes created by NASA that got launched in 1977 to explore the outer planets of the solar system. Both probes are identical and they regularly send scientific data to Earth. They are considered one of the greatest achievements of NASA. Voyager 1 got launched in September of 1977, while Voyager 2 already got launched 2 weeks prior on a slightly different trajectory. Both probes passed Jupiter and Saturn, but while Voyager 2 continued exploring the outer planets of the solar system, Voyager 1 made its way to the edge of the solar system. In 2012, Voyager 1 became the first man-made object that entered interstellar space, and it is the furthest man-made object from Earth to date, with a distance of 23.02 billion kilometers. Voyager 2 is the third furthest man-made object after Pioneer 10, another space probe. Due to the limited energy supply of the probes, NASA will probably shut down the last active scientific instruments of the probes in a few years, and therefore no longer receive data from them. But they will still continue floating around in space and act as a human time capsule, thanks to the famous golden record discs that the 2 probes carry, which I will talk more about in a later tier. New Horizons. Another space probe specifically created to explore Pluto and the Kuiper belt, the region of the solar system in which it is currently in. The probe got launched in 2006 and in 2015 it reached Pluto and therefore became the first man-made object doing so. This project was necessary because it is very difficult to get any data from Pluto from Earth, since it is so far away. After documenting Pluto, New Horizons continued to explore other objects in the Kuiper belt. New Horizons carries some cultural objects from Earth, like a stamp that holds the record for the furthest travel stamp, and some of the ashes of Pluto's discoverer, Clyde Tombaugh. Ganymede, Callisto, Io and Europa, or also called the Galilean moons, are the 4 biggest moons of Jupiter. They are called that way because Galileo Galilei discovered them in 1610. Ganymede is not only Jupiter's biggest moon, but also the biggest moon in the solar system in general. It has a diameter of 5,262 kilometers, which makes it bigger than Mercury. Ganymede is what is referred to as an icy moon, which means that its surface is mostly composed out of ice. Also, it has an iron core and a very thin atmosphere. Callisto is the outermost of the 4, but it is the second largest of the bunch. Like Ganymede, Callisto is also an icy moon with a thin atmosphere. Its heavily cratered surface is estimated to be the oldest in the entire solar system, and there may even lie an ocean beneath it. Io is the innermost and third largest of the four, and it is the only one of the Galilean moons that isn't an icy moon. In fact, Io is the object with the most geological activity in the solar system, caused by its well over 400 active volcanoes. This is caused by something called tidal heating. The orbital and rotational energy of the Galilean moons and Jupiter itself get transformed into heat that penetrates into Io's surface. Io has a great astronomical importance, since its discovery helped to adapt the Copernican model of the solar system, the development of Kepler's law of motion, and it was also used to measure the speed of light. Europa is the smallest of the four, but also one of the closest to Jupiter out of its total 79 moons. It is another icy moon like most moons in the outer solar system. What makes this one special is that it has a very smooth surface, smoother than any other object in the solar system. This led to the theory that there may lie an ocean beneath the surface that contains life, which would be revolutionary if proven. From all the locations in the solar system besides Earth, Europa is the most likely to harbor life. There's a mission planned to send a probe to Europa in 2024 to gather more information, which is pretty exciting. Eris. Eris is the second biggest dwarf planet of the solar system. It got discovered in 2005, and just like Pluto at the time of its discovery, it was considered a planet, making it the 10th planet of the solar system. But soon after, it got classified as a dwarf planet. Unlike Pluto, Eris hasn't been explored yet by any space probes. Pillars of creation. What you see right here are elephant trunks of interstellar gas and dust. Elephant trunks are a type of interstellar matter, which is matter that exists between star systems. Due to their intense radiation, they can create these huge expanding pillars of gas. This one specifically was photographed from a distance of 7,000 light years by the Hubble Space Telescope. The name Pillars of Creation was given to this picture because the gas and dust featured in the photograph are in the process of creating new stars. Scientists detected a shockwave caused by a supernova in that area and theorized that the pillars actually got destroyed 6,000 years ago. Orion Nebula. Orion Nebula is a body of interstellar clouds located in the constellation of Orion. It is one of the brightest of its kind, making it visible to the naked eye, and it's mostly made out of hydrogen. Nebulas are places where dozens of stars are created from collapsing clouds of gas and dust. Orion Nebula is also one of the most photographed interstellar objects. Crab Nebula. Located in the constellation of Taurus, Crab Nebula is what remains of a supernova that got observed in the year 1054. In the center of this formation there is a so-called neuron star, which got created by the collapse of the core of its previous supergiant star. Like the name suggests, this type of star is mostly made out of neurons. Ceres. Ceres is the first discovered dwarf planet and also the smallest to date. It got first discovered in 1801. Back then it got classified as a planet, later on as an asteroid, and finally in 2006 as a dwarf planet. Juno. In 2016 the space probe Juno got launched into space. Its purpose was to explore Jupiter and research specific characteristics of the planet. Unlike its predecessors, it isn't powered by nuclear energy but by solar energy, since on its trajectory to Jupiter, Juno always faced the sun. Like other space probes, this one also carries a few fun items, like a portrait and a signed paper of Galileo Galilei. Milky Way's supermassive black hole. Like I mentioned earlier, there probably is a massive black hole in the center of the Milky Way that keeps the galaxy together. Its mass is 4.5 million times the mass of the Sun, and like all black holes, it used to be a star whose center collapsed in upon itself. Actually, the center of the Milky Way is also called Sagittarius A star, which is marked by an intense radio source. And the way astronomical objects spin around the center makes scientists assume that there's indeed a black hole in the center. There isn't definitive proof of its existence, since it hasn't been directly observed yet, but scientists are 99.999% sure that it exists. Kuiper Belt. The Kuiper Belt is the name for the most outer space of the solar system. Basically everything beyond Neptune is Kuiper Belt. It contains approximately 70,000 objects, mostly asteroids, dwarf planets, comets and dust. Also, a lot of the solar system's moons originate from this region, like Neptune's moon Triton. Regal. Regal is the brightest star in the Orion constellation and the 7th brightest star in the night sky. It is approximately 9 million years old, and not only that, but Regal is also a blue supergiant star, which means that it is really big and blue. Betelgeuse, another star in the Orion constellation. Betelgeuse is the second brightest star of Orion and the 10th brightest star in the night sky, and it's probably going to die in a supernova in 100,000 years. Betelgeuse is a red supergiant, and in terms of volume, those type of stars are some of the largest in the universe. Also, in 2019, Betelgeuse randomly dimmed down by a lot, and in 2020 it brightened up again, but nobody exactly knows why. Triton, famously named after the Greek sea god, Triton is Neptune's largest moon and the first Neptunian moon to be discovered. With a diameter of 2,710 kilometers, Triton is one of the largest moons in the solar system. Interesting about Triton is that unlike other moons, it spins in the opposite direction of its planet's rotation. Like I mentioned earlier, Triton used to be in the Kuiper belt, which means that it most likely used to be a dwarf planet until it found its way into Neptune's orbit, which also explains the opposite orbit direction. Triton has an icy surface and it's very geologically active, unlike most other moons. Voyager 2, the only probe that visited Triton, found out that it possesses many gases on its surface that erupt nitrogen gas. Large Magellanic Cloud. The Large Magellanic Cloud is a so-called satellite galaxy, a smaller companion galaxy that orbits around a bigger galaxy. In this case, the Large Magellanic Cloud orbits around the Milky Way. The Milky Way possesses around 50 satellite galaxies, from which the Large Magellanic Cloud is the largest of them. It has a diameter of approximately 14,000 light years, and its mass is about 100th of the Milky Way's mass. The Large Magellanic Cloud is called that way because A, it's pretty large for a satellite galaxy, and B, it is a Magellanic spiral, meaning that its center is a stellar bar that is geometrically off-center. Also, it is going to collide with the Milky Way in about 2.4 billion years, so yeah, small Magellanic Cloud. Of course, if there is a large Magellanic Cloud, there has to be a small Magellanic Cloud. The small Magellanic Cloud is a dwarf galaxy, which just means that it is comparatively small. Like its bigger counterpart, it spirals around the Milky Way, also making it a satellite galaxy, the second largest of the Milky Way. Like you might have already suspected, the small and the large Magellanic Cloud belong together. It is believed that the small Magellanic Cloud used to be a satellite galaxy of its bigger brother. It is also an irregular galaxy, which means that it has no distinct shape or form, but that wasn't always the case. Scientists believe that it used to be a barred spiral galaxy, but due to the Milky Way's gravitational pull, it got deformed over time. Hale-Bopp. Hale-Bopp is a comet that got discovered in 1995. It is considered to be one of the brightest comets of all time, so bright in fact that you could observe it with the naked eye for 18 months straight. At the time, the internet became more and more popular, and a lot of websites were dedicated to the observation of Hale-Bopp. This contributed to the fact that Hale-Bopp is the most widely observed comet of the 20th century. There are quite a few UFO conspiracies surrounding the comet. Like in 1996, some dude took a picture of the comet and analyzed it with a special computer program. He discovered a small object seemingly following Hale-Bopp that the program couldn't identify. A lot of people believe this to be a UFO that was following the comet, but as it turned out, the guy who took the picture simply just didn't set up the software properly. Or in 1997, where 39 members of the infamous cult Heaven's Gate committed mass because they believed that there was a spaceship flying behind the comet and by they would get teleported on the ship. Proxima Centauri. With a distance of 4,247 light years, Proxima Centauri is the closest star to the Sun. Proxima is Latin and literally means the nearest star to the Sun. Centauri simply indicates that it is located in the Centaurus constellation. Proxima Centauri is actually the center of a planetary system. The first planet of the system, Proxima Centauri b, only got discovered in 2016, and the second one in 2020. Proxima Centauri is additionally a red dwarf, which is a star that is relatively tiny and not very bright. Since it also is a flare star, meaning that it can randomly increase in brightness by a lot, makes the Proxima Centauri planetary system an unlikely place for the existence of life. Pleiades. Pleiades is one of the nearest star clusters to Earth, making it visible to the naked eye. It is located in the northwest of the Taurus constellation. Local group. The local group is a group of galaxies that includes the Milky Way among others. It is unknown how many galaxies it contains, but there are at least 80 that are known. Since most galaxies in it are dwarf galaxies, the Milky Way and the Andromeda Galaxy are the biggest members of the local group. M87's black hole. Messiah 87 is a supergiant galaxy in the constellation Virgo, and in fact it's one of the biggest in the local universe. In 2019 it has been confirmed that there is a giant supermassive black hole in the center of the galaxy, and you probably have no idea why this entry is so important, but when I show you this picture, you might get an idea why. This picture is the first photograph of a black hole ever taken, and it was the talk of the town when it got released, and also fell victim to countless memes. The reason why this picture is so revolutionary is because in theory it should be impossible to photograph a black hole, because a black hole is literally an absence of light, an absence of anything actually. And it is. The picture doesn't actually show the black hole, but the polarization of the magnetic fields that surround it. Since we know for a fact that the magnetic field rings surround an actual black hole, we can infer that the empty space in the middle is the black hole, without it actually being photographed. Mimas. Mimas is Saturn's 7th biggest moon. It is an icy moon, and scientists think that there might be an ocean beneath its icy surface. It might remind you of the Death Star from Star Wars, because it has this huge singular crater. Because of this resemblance, Mimas is also called Death Star, even among experts. You might think that George Lucas took Mimas as an inspiration for the Death Star, but the crater was only discovered 3 years after the release of A New Hope, so it's just a coincidence. Enceladus. This is basically Saturn's equivalent of Europa. Enceladus is also an icy moon, and it is one of Saturn's biggest moons. Enceladus has shown some volcanic activity, specifically in the southern polar region, that has resulted in the creation of a thin atmosphere, and the water particles that it releases are probably also responsible for a part of Saturn's rings. It is also believed that it contains liquid water and has therefore good conditions for the creation of life. It is not only believed that it has subterranean oceans, but also a global ocean on the surface. Titania. Titania is Uranus' biggest moon and the 8th biggest in the solar system. It is mostly made out of rock and ice, and liquid water may be present at the core mantle boundary. Besides the discovery of water ice, scientists also detected frozen carbon dioxide on the surface, which suggests that Titania may have an atmosphere made out of carbon dioxide. Tesla. Here's another object that became a meme. In 2018, owner of Tesla and SpaceX, Elon Musk, decided to shortly merge his two companies for a huge publicity stunt, where he launched a Tesla car attached to a SpaceX rocket into space. A mannequin dressed as an astronaut was seated in the driver's seat of the car. The Tesla is still floating in space, and last year it actually made a close approach to Mars. It is believed that in approximately 3 million years, the Tesla is going to collide either with Venus or with Earth. Sedna. Sedna is a distant dwarf planet that is located in the most outer reaches of the solar system. Its surface is the reddest in the entire solar system, and it is mostly made out of water, methane and nitrogen ices. Sedna has an unusual elongated orbit that is believed to be influenced by Neptune's gravitational influence. It takes 11,400 years for Sedna to complete one rotation around the Sun, and is therefore the object in the solar system with the largest orbit. Haumea. Haumea is really interesting. It's not a dwarf planet in the outer reaches of the solar system, but unlike most planets, it is oval-shaped, which looks really weird. And in addition to that, it possesses a ring system, which makes it the first trans-Neptunian object with a ring system. Trans-Neptunian meaning that it possesses an orbit that is larger than Neptune's. Haumea's ring system is actually a separate entry further down, but I will just talk about it now since we're already talking about the planet. It has a diameter of 4,574 kilometers, and it spins 3 times slower than Haumea itself. It also contributes about 5% of the total brightness to the whole Haumea system. Mystic Mountain. There is a large area in the constellation Carina called the Carina Nebula, 8,500 light years from Earth. It is one of the largest diffuse nebula ever, being even bigger and brighter than the Orion Nebula. The Mystic Mountain is an iconic photograph of a region of the Carina Nebula taken by the Hubble Space Telescope. Pioneer 10 and Pioneer 11. Pioneer 10 and its twin Pioneer 11 were two space probes that got launched between 1972 and 1973. Both were designed to explore the outer solar system. Pioneer 10 was the first man-built space probe that reached the needed escape velocity to reach the planet Jupiter and later the outer edge of the solar system. January 2003 was the last time it sent information to Earth, and with 31 active years, it exceeded its expected lifespan by 29 years. Pioneer 11 was the first man-made probe to reach Saturn, and the last piece of data it sent to Earth was received in 1995. Both were equipped with the so-called Pioneer plaque, which was an aluminum plaque with engraved shapes and symbols, just like the golden records destined for potential intelligent life forms to discover. Apophis. In 2004, 3 astronomers discovered the near-Earth asteroid Apophis, which was, according to them, going to collide with Earth in the year 2029 with a probability of 2.7%, which doesn't sound like much at first, but after considering that this might have been a global catastrophic risk, suddenly 2.7% doesn't seem that low anymore. And of course, this discovery resulted in mass panic. But after some recalculations, they found out that it is a lot less probable that Apophis will collide with Earth in 2029 than they initially thought. However, Apophis is returning again in 2039, and it is still uncertain how close it will pass by, or, if it will collide. But don't worry, a potential collision is only equivalent to the detonation of 900 megatons of TNT, which is still really bad, but the required energy to result in mass extinction would have to be 100 times larger. Dark matter. You probably heard a lot about dark matter before, but you still aren't sure what exactly it is. And it is for sure an interesting and complicated rabbit hole to go down, but all you have to know is that we don't even know if it exists. As you know, everything that exists is made out of matter. Dark matter is an hypothetical invisible type of matter that interacts with other matter mostly through gravity. Scientists found out that stars in the outer parts of galaxies rotate a lot faster than it is expected from them, looking at the gravitational influence of the visible matter interacting with them. So they concluded that there has to be another form of matter that has some kind of gravitational impact. Dark matter. To this day, its existence couldn't be proven, but if it exists, it would make up 85% of the total mass of the entire universe. Vesta. Vesta is the heaviest and second largest asteroid in the asteroid belt and is believed to be a protoplanet, the forerunner of a planet from the first stages of the solar system. It is the only asteroid that can be observed with the naked eye. Sombrero Galaxy. It's a galaxy that looks like a sombrero. More specific, it's a spiral galaxy between the constellations Virgo and Corvus, also known as Messiah Object 104. Its visible ring is mostly made out of gas and dust. It's easily visible when using a telescope, and that's basically it. I mean, it's a galaxy that looks like a sombrero. That's pretty sick. How you gonna top that? Wow signal. The wow signal was a radio signal received in 1977 by the Ohio State University's Big Ear Radio Telescope that appeared to come from the constellation Sagittarius. This signal is believed to be proof for extraterrestrial life. Here's what it sounds like. The guy who got the signal, Jerry R. Eman, was so impressed by the signal that he wrote the comment "wow" on the computer printout of the signal. The months after have been spent recovering the signal, but sadly with no success. Voyager record. I already mentioned the Voyager golden record a few times. The Voyager spacecraft launched with 2 phonograph records that contained sounds and images that were meant to represent life and culture on Earth, in the case that an alien species would find the record. Apart from guidelines on how to decode the record, it also contained a map to locate Earth and a bunch of sounds and pictures of a lot of different things like mathematical equations, physical unit definitions, different planets of our solar system, the ocean, the human anatomy, buildings, vehicles, culture from all around the globe, and a lot more. I advise you to take a look for yourself at the contents of the golden records. It's a really interesting rabbit hole to go down. Tarantula Nebula. Tarantula Nebula is one of the largest nebulas ever discovered. It got discovered in 1751, and despite its distance of 163,000 light years, it is easily visible with most small telescopes. Cat's Eye Nebula. It's a nebula that looks like a cat's eye. It is located in the constellation Draco, and it is one of the more complex nebulas from the more popular ones, as it possesses knots, jets, bubbles, and other complex structures. And that's pretty much all there is to it. I mean, it's a galaxy that looks like a cat's eye. Oort cloud. The Oort cloud is the most distant region of the solar system. It lies beyond the outermost atmospheric layer of the Sun and in interstellar space. It basically defines the boundary of the solar system. It has yet to be explored, since no space probes have reached it yet. Since the cloud is the boundary of the solar system, it gets easily affected by passing stars and the Milky Way itself, whose gravitational forces often shift comets from the orbit in the Oort cloud and redirect them towards the center of the solar system.
67P Churyumov-Gerasimenko.
67P is a comet first discovered in 1969 by Soviet astronomers that originated from the Kuiper belt. In 2014, the Rosetta space probe ejected its lander Philae so it can land on the surface of the comet, making it the first spacecraft that landed on a comet.
Which in and of itself is already pretty impressive, but the lander also gave us this incredible footage of what it looks like being on a moving comet.
Shoemaker-Levy 9. Shoemaker-Levy 9, also known as D1993 F2, used to be a comet in Jupiter's vicinity that got discovered in 1993. I'm saying used to because it doesn't exist anymore. The D in D1993 F2 stands for disappeared. After summer research, astronomers found out that the comet was broken up in several fragments, probably due to Jupiter's gravitational impact, and a year later in 1994 the fragments collided with Jupiter, releasing energy that was equivalent to 50 million Hiroshima bombs. The impact created massive black spots in Jupiter's atmosphere that were still visible after several months. Hyakutake. Discovered in 1996, Hyakutake is a comet that passed very close to Earth in the same year. It was visible with the naked eye, that's why it was also called the Great Comet of 1996. Hyakutake turned out to have the longest tail for a comet with a length of 400 million kilometers. It was also discovered that the comet emitted strong X-rays, which led to scientists figuring out that this is the case for most comets. Ring Nebula. Located in the constellation Lyra, Ring Nebula is a planetary nebula. Despite the name, planetary nebulas have nothing to do with planets. They are the remains of stars that have repelled their outer gas layers just before becoming white dwarfs. The white dwarf is located in the center, and like the name suggests, the Ring Nebula is formed like a ring. Messiah 15 and Messiah 80. Messiah 15 and 80 are globular clusters, meaning they are spherical groups of stars. Messiah 15, located in the constellation Pegasus, contains approximately over 100,000 stars and is one of the most densely packed globular clusters in the Milky Way. Messiah 80 is located in the constellation Scorpius and contains a great amount of blue stragglers, which are kinds of blue stars that are probably created by the collision and fusion of two stars. In a galaxy, such collisions would be impossible, but in a group of thousands of stars like this one, it's plausible. Triangulum Galaxy and Whirlpool Galaxy. They're both spiral galaxies. The Triangulum Galaxy is located in the constellation Triangulum, and it's the third largest galaxy of the local group. It can be viewed with the naked eye, and it is believed that the Triangulum Galaxy is a satellite of the bigger Andromeda Galaxy. The Whirlpool Galaxy is located in the constellation Canes Venatici. One of the main characteristics of the Whirlpool Galaxy, besides looking like a whirlpool, is that it has a companion called NGC 5195, which is a smaller galaxy. It is the nearest galaxy to Earth with an active galactic nucleus, meaning it has a center that releases high amounts of radiation, probably produced by the supermassive black hole that's located in there.